Good morning, everybody. To those who are joining us, I see the room is filling up, so you're very welcome. We're just welcoming people into our World Braille Day event from Sight and Sound Technology. And I'm just watching the numbers in the room as it fills up. Great to see so many people join us so quickly. We will be starting the session in about 2 minutes, and you're all very welcome. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever in the world you may be joining us, and you're very welcome to Sight and Sound Technology's World Braille Day event. First of all, I should say Happy New Year to everybody, and I should also say Happy World Braille Day. My name is Stuart Lawler, for those who don't know me, and I'm the Head of Digital Content here at Sight and Sound Technology. Absolutely delighted to be here for another World Braille Day. For me personally, as a Braille user, it's always a day on which I reflect and think about how grateful I am that the Braille code is with us, and I guess the liberation and freedom it has given us to do so many things. And sometimes it makes me think where I would be or what I would be doing were it not for Braille. And I sort of dread to have those thoughts, I think. Today, we have assembled a really great panel of passionate Braille users to talk to us about their experiences and help us to reflect a little bit on Braille. And I will introduce those to you in just a moment. We're also joined today by Sight and Sound colleagues Fanula Murphy and Shauna Humphreys, who will be helping us during the session today. Now, this is an interactive session. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear your experiences of Braille and maybe your stories or what Braille means to you and what World Braille Day means to you. You can do that by raising your hand on Zoom, Alt-Y if you're on a computer, Option and Y if you're on a Mac, or if you are on the mobile platform, you can find raise hand buttons on both iOS and Android. And similarly, you can type in chat with Alt and H on a computer, Option and H on the Mac, or you can do the chat using the appropriate iOS or Android apps as well. Fanula will be keeping an eye on raised hands and chat, and we'll have lots of time for your interaction. So let me introduce our panel. We have three wonderful ladies. We should have probably had a lady chairing this event as well, I feel. But I'm delighted to have Marcia Corper, who joins us from Liverpool. I've got to know Marcia very well in the last couple of years. She's a wonderful person, a really passionate Braille user, and someone who's also doing really great things with Braille technology, and I'm sure we'll talk about Braille technology as well. We have Bernie Warren, who, Bernie, I never asked where you live. I think you're around London, but
Surrey.
Surrey, okay. So Bernie is in Surrey, and Bernie has a really interesting story about how she came to Braille, but she is also the person who has driven a really great Braillists session that's run every Thursday, which comprises a book club. And Bernie is the driving force, I think it would be fair to say, behind that. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And we have Adriana Prokopenko, who is a teacher for the blind in Macedonia. And I think Adriana will bring a very unique perspective to the World Braille Day discussions, and even some very simple things around the availability of Braille and things that some of us in this part of the world may take for granted. So you're all very welcome, and thank you for joining us. And finally, before we start into the panel, I just want to mention that friends and colleagues in the sector are also doing great things today on World Braille Day, so it's not just us by any means. There are lots of things happening today, both on and offline, I'm sure, but two to flag for you. Our friends in the Braillist Foundation this evening have an event at 7:30 p.m. UK time. The Braille you need when you need it. Always worth going along to a Brailleist event foundation. And Shauna, my colleague, has just put a link for that event into the chat if you'd like to register, or you can email help@brailleist.org if you run into any problems. And at 1 p.m. today, our friends at UCAF, that's the UK Association for Accessible Formats, are running a lunchtime webinar about Braille innovations. And again, if you'd like to register, we'll put the link in the chat for that session as well. Now, let's go to our panel. I'm always interested to hear people's Braille journey and maybe where Braille began. Marcia, I don't know if we can maybe start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about maybe your Braille journey, learning Braille? When did it all start for you, and what was that experience like?
Sure. Well, I lost my sight due to an accident at 3. So I went to a school for blind children from the age of 5. It was a boarding school, of course. And so all my education has been in Braille all the way through. So when I was 5, the way we learned it, we had a little board with you know how the Braille has the 6 dots. So there were the 10 cells across the board, and there were 3 lines of it. So you learned the A to J bit on that top line, and then by putting little tiny nails into the board, and then below that you just added the bottom left-hand dot to get the next 10 letters, K to T, and then the U, V, X, Y, Z, you added the bottom right-hand dot. So very quickly you could see the pattern of Braille, and it became very easy to learn. I've no idea how they teach children now, but that was a very easy way for me. And certainly by the age of 6, I was being entered for Braille competitions, reading competitions in Manchester. Amusingly, I think, I was actually chosen as one of the readers for the afternoon when you did it to the public. And I had to read a little thing about Percy the pig, but in my innocence, I pronounced him Perky the pig. And I think that's rather a good name for a pig, actually. And then, so I didn't really have to worry about anything in terms of getting books or whatever, because they were always available to me. And in those days, we had a Braille library in Manchester. So what you did was to put a list of the books that you would like to read, just generally, it didn't have to be specific. It could be by author or type of book or whatever, with the library. And then they would send you so many volumes of Braille. And as you finished them, you returned them by post, which was all free, of course.
The
And
big
they would
bags
send
of
you
those big canvas bags, was it, with the Braille
that's
books?
the one, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
those canvas bags were made by prisoners, I understand. However, that was the way we did it. So that was how I learned Braille.
Marcia, you mentioned those Braille reading competitions. I know I have a sort of a vague memory of that when I was in school as well, and I remember talking to some other people about that recently. They were kind of great events, you know.
They were.
They were quite competitive, but they were great.
Yes.
So let's go to Adriana, because Adriana in Macedonia, did you attend a school for the blind and the kind of a whole Braille experience for you? What was it like?
Yeah, it was a school for the blind, and I started learning at the age of 7. So just like all the other kids at that time, we started with this little board with dividers for each dot, and we were putting all kinds of things into it, like little beans and little balls and little something, so the teacher could know that we got the idea about how it works. And
Had
then we started using the braillers. I think at that time there were these Erica braillers made in Eastern Germany that were a bit difficult to use because you had to press lots to be able to make the letters come up.
Okay,
So
so
we
you
used
weren't.
that, and then when we were in 2nd grade, they taught us how to use the slate and stylus. And then after that, I think I got to enjoy it as time went on. And then there were a couple of books there that were like 50 years old that were made in the Serbian Association of the Blind. So we got to read them. And then we got to have these competitions in class and read there and compete with each other and kind of learn how to read and write well. Sometimes the teacher would give us some old papers from different students that we could read and correct errors and do different kinds of things. That's how it started with me.
Adriana, you mentioned the slate and stylus there, and I've seen people using those who can fly with those things. I could never do it. I'm just not able to. My brain doesn't work
Yeah.
that way. But just there might be people who don't know what that is. Can you just?
It was very hard at first, but at that time I didn't know certain things about how they worked, and the slates and stylus that we had were a bit old. So I guess the thicker the paper it is, like the harder it is to write on it.
Mm.
And also the plastic ones, I think they don't work very well. It has to be like a big metal slate and
Sure.
a good stylus.
Okay.
But at that time, I was young, so I didn't have any idea till I got more experience. But I guess with practice, you kind of learn it and then you use it. They gave us these notebooks that we had to practice during weekends and during break times and things like that. So we have to finish that homework. So yeah, and sometimes I use it for other things when I can't get braillers, but that's how it happens with me.
Okay, really, really interesting kind of to hear the difference in experience. Bernie, your journey with Braille is different to the other ladies I know, and the way you came to Braille is different. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so thanks, Stuart. So I didn't start learning Braille until about 2016. I have a sight loss due to diabetes, and I went to a communication class, and that when I first started going, I was learning I was learning to actually do computer skills, or computer skills, and I 1 week there wasn't anyone there to do computer skills. They said, "Oh, sorry, there's only Braille. There's only Braille teachers here today." So I said, "Oh, I'll give it a try, see how it goes. I can give it an hour." Anyway, after like the lesson, I was completely hooked, and my sight loss has unfortunately got worse over the years, and I use Braille quite a lot now. But it was just that opportunity to start learning, and it was in a class very close to me, so I was taken every week. And once I wanted to learn it, I was really driven. I loved learning. It was a code that I'd never come across. I'd known about Braille because when I was about 17, ironically actually, I was doing a course in Tunbridge, and it gave me opportunity to do a placement. And the placement I chose was Dorton House School for the Blind. And that was when I was about 17, 18. So I knew about Braille, never knowing I would ever come across it again. And then many years later, there was not another opportunity for me to actually learn Braille. And when I started learning, I was making flashcards and taking homework home to read. And that's basically, and so that's how it went on. And then, as you said earlier, I started the book club in 2020 because I really wanted to carry on my learning. During lockdown, there was no opportunity for classes. And so, but I'm still a Braille learner, I would say, even though I read grade 2. But I wanted to read with other people, and that's when I asked whether we could start a book club, and that's how the book club started, because I wanted to continue my learning of Braille, and I wanted to read with others, which is what I was really missing.
It's interesting, Bernie, that you're not the first person who came to Braille later in life who just really was fascinated and really took to this thing. And I've talked to other people who've had that experience too. It's a new code. I've never come across something like this before. I really want to get my teeth into it. It's that kind of zest for wanting to learn something. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened to you too.
Yeah, it was. And it wasn't what Marsh was saying was absolutely right about learning it from A to J and then K to T, etc., etc. Absolutely, that's exactly how I learned it. And in fact, I found that Braille actually wasn't that hard to learn when you did it that way. You're just adding in an extra dot, apart from W, of course, which slightly different, but that's funny because my surname is Warren, so it begins with the W. But yeah, so yeah, it's actually not as hard as it looks to begin with. You think, oh my gosh, but actually there is a rhythm to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everybody for sharing those stories. I think it's really interesting to hear how people came to Braille. Just two little housekeeping things. I got a message via WhatsApp from somebody who's at the session here to tell me the chat was disabled. So that has been fixed now. If anybody wants to use chat, and I apologize for that, I didn't spot that. You can use chat. Shauna, we might just stick the links for those other events back in, if that's okay, because they may not have got to everyone in chat. And just to remind people, if you want to raise your hands, etc., you can do that. I just see we've lost Marcia, so I hope she might be able to reconnect with us again in a sec. Okay, so one of the other things that we were interested to talk about was accessing Braille reading material, and maybe how we access Braille reading material. Bernie, can I ask you to maybe just how do you get access to reading material, or what's available for you?
Yeah, so as you know, as I said before, I'm actually in the UK, so for me it's not so hard. So I have read hard copy, so the RNIB actually have been fantastic in sending hard copy books, and I have an Orbit 20. I've actually got it here for anyone who has sight. So it's a Braille display called an Orbit 20, and so it's a digital Braille display. I prefer the digital display because it's just one single line. I really find hard copy hard to read because it's double. It can be single space, which means you've got lots of Braille on one page, one line after the other. And on the reverse, it's like inverted dots as well. So it's like, so yeah, so it's not hard for me to get hold of Braille. I know I'm really fortunate in that.
Sorry, apologies, Bernie. Thank you for that. I'm just trying to see, can we get Marcia back on the meeting? So the Braille displays, and of course the Orbit display, very popular. Adriana, how are you getting access to Braille in Macedonia, and maybe what's available? Because I imagine it's quite different.
Yeah, it's really hard to get any Braille here because they don't really produce much in Macedonia here, and there are some magazines and some things that I get that are free from the RNIB that I get from my students, and a couple of other magazines from South Africa and some religious magazines from the US, one magazine from India. But other than that, I think over the years, many places have disabled their Braille magazines, so it's extremely hard to get things in Braille in whatever language here.
Is
So
there
I really
is there much production going on in Macedonia? I'm thinking of things like
in the association, not at all. I think sometimes from time to time, different places produce different leaflets for different projects that they are into for different museums and stuff like that. So that's a bit better in that regard. And with the school, we have now got a person and a Braille embosser, so we started producing a couple of books in Braille and proofreading and checking, and that's also a big process because one person can do it. We need a whole team, and we don't have courses for Braille transcribers and things like that, so we mostly do it just the best we know how. So that's how we do it.
Yeah, and all these things take time. And I suppose when you have people then waiting on, for example, I'm thinking of schools, people waiting on textbooks,
Yeah.
that can really stunt someone's learning, right?
Yeah, and we also have issues with, these things, if they need to be fixed, you can't do it easily in the country, you can get spare parts, and if you send them over to another place, you have to pay for customs and things like that. It makes it
Okay.
hard.
Okay. Thanks for that, Adriana. Unfortunately, we have lost poor Marcia. She's unable to reconnect. She's had an issue with her phone that she was connected on, so I'm afraid we're down a panelist, but we will stay going. This is how it goes. We got to roll with it. Um, so one of the big areas I think that we talk about or we think about a lot, and maybe World Braille Day is a really is a time that we do maybe, well, certainly I find myself thinking on it about a bit more, is about how do we reflect on Braille? How do we reflect on getting more Braille? And how do we maybe become champions for the Braille code? How do we push Braille? And I'm thinking, for example, of going into a restaurant and getting a Braille menu. It's very liberating. We have obviously Braille on pharmaceutical products now. Um, and the one that everybody talks about, I suppose, Braille on the lifts. Bernie, do you have any thoughts around how we as Braille users can kind of advocate and push this agenda a bit?
Well, firstly, I think Braille is so important to be out and about. That's my first thought, really. Even going to the hospital recently, my local hospital, there was no Braille in the lifts at all, and I was really stunned. I thought in the hospital there needs to be Braille, and I think getting the message out there that actually, I think having been a sighted person, I didn't even think about Braille. I didn't even it didn't even pass my thought. But actually, to actually be requesting Braille, I think we as Braille users, I think I've started to request Braille now. Oh, do you have this in Braille? And it gets that thought process going. Actually, we don't do that. Should we be doing it? And then not just, I don't know, I was thinking that not just saying that, but also give them the people that don't have Braille in their restaurant, for example, not just saying that, but giving them the opportunity to know where to go for help with that, because we could tell them, but well, what do they do with that? Where do they go with that? Who do they contact? How can they get help with that? It's not they don't want to do it. I don't think at all. I don't get that impression. I think they don't know how to get the help and how to do it. I've never been in a restaurant where there's Braille. Wow, that would be absolutely brilliant. Would it be in grade 1 or grade 2 though? So that's my next question. It's like, Braille numbers are quite easy. They come in one fixes all, sort of thing. But yeah, no, it's really needed.
My experience of going into a restaurant, Bernie, the first time I ever visited the States, and I was in Los Angeles, and got handed a Braille menu, and
Wow.
you order your food, and they come away to take the menus. I said,
Yeah.
no, I want to read the menu. I want to just keep reading because I'd never seen a Braille menu before, and they were
Yeah.
quite sort of astounded that this was such a big thing for me.
Yeah.
I can just see a load of stuff, which is great. There's quite a few messages coming in on chat. So I don't know, Fanula, if you wanted to just give us a bit of an overview of, there might be some interesting stuff coming up.
Yeah, I will indeed. There's a couple of people who learned Braille in other countries, Russia, Poland. So using the slate and stylus seems to, a lot of people have learned that way. There was a specific question, just let me find it, Bernie. When using the Braille device, I presume it's your display, does a book have to be transcribed into Braille? So how are you using it to read books, I suppose?
Okay, so I have like an SD card in the back of it, and I can download books on a BRF file, which can go then onto the SD card, and then it comes into the I can just put it into my Braille display. So it's you need an SD card really, I think, to be able to get books and things on there. But actually, it's not. I'm no good at technology. Okay, that is one of my downfalls, but it's actually I found not so hard to do. So, and there's always great support as well. Like in this country, it's RNIB. They've got Technology for Life, for example. They really are supportive. So yeah, that's how you do it.
Okay, that's great. And what about you, Stuart? Is there anything? I mean, can you use your Kindle or Amazon account?
Yeah, so I tend to use a kind of a mix of both. I have used some Kindle stuff. I've used some iBooks. When I read stuff on my Braille display, it's usually attached to my phone. And then if I'm using BRF files similar to Bernie, I'll get what's called a BRF or Braille ready file, which is usually formatted and translated to be used with a Braille display.
Okay, that's great. There's some nice positive comments. Braille is a magical tool that opens up the world of reading and writing across the world. So, you know, it's fantastic to see comments like that. Somebody here actually who in college or in university, a couple of their classmates learned Braille just for fun, and they would sort of test each other,
Wow.
writing back and forth. So that's great to hear. There's a couple of new comments. Just let me get down a bit further. Question for Adriana: are public labels common in Macedonia for things like bathrooms, for example? So I suppose signage and.
Not very often, because here we don't have any Braille labeling devices in this country, so we have to, I guess, label in other ways, but I guess you can't do it on regular labels because it's easy for them to get damaged and all that. So I think I haven't seen any in Braille so far. I'm not even sure they exist here.
And what about things like menus in restaurants? That just doesn't exist either, does it? If you
I
go...
think they advertised that they did through a project. They did one in one restaurant last year, but other than that, if you just go out and request it, you can't get any. But I think there are a couple of them that they have put out their menus online and on their sites and things like that, and they can send it to you if you want to read it on the phone.
I'm curious to know, by the way, I was just thinking in my head here, if anyone in the audience, even anyone has any funny Braille stories. The one we always had back in school in the mid-80s, there was a payphone, and there was a series of codes you could enter into the phone to get free calls, and everyone knew about this. So this was going around on a Braille sheet that all the kids were reading, and we were all putting this code in, but none of the staff in the school were Braille users or were Braille readers. So these cheat sheets were going around in Braille, and we were absolutely delighted that we had Braille. So I see we have a few hands raised, and we might go to those in a minute. I was just going to very quickly, maybe Bernie, people who might want to, and I'm sure there might be people who are coming to this event today, either who have never used Braille, or maybe they've been thinking about it, or they might be lapsed Braille users. I think there's a lot of lapsed Braille users around. Where can people go, or what's any tips for people to get started or get back on the road?
Yeah, there are a couple of courses actually that are free courses. I mean, they're the ones you don't have to pay for at all. So the Brailleist Foundation have a Braille for Beginners course, which is brilliant, really good. And I started when I sort of was using the book club, in the book club, and I actually also went for Braille for Beginners as well, just to brush up on some skills. And it's also a real community there as well, which I think is really important in Braille learning, that you're not just doing it on your own. You know, you can actually converse with other people as well. And also UEB online, I also use that. That was a free course online that I could do and to learn Braille. But, you know, I have some sight. So even though, so I started learning Braille by sight, I was holding my book about 5 centimeters from my face, and then in lockdown I learned by touch. And I think UEB online is for those that have some sight, but it's a really good way to start. But the Brailleist Foundation have one where you can actually you know, they send you Braille, you know, hard copy Braille, I think. So you can learn that way as well, which I think is really important to also learn by touch, even though I hesitated. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it, but actually it was easier than I thought. So those are 2 courses that I know of.
Yeah, and I think the amount of energy and support from the Brailleist Foundation is fantastic. So I highly recommend people check it out. Bernie, I was just seeing there was somebody put something in chat. It's Peter was mentioning that he had heard before about a Braille sign that was placed under glass to keep it clean. So there you go. It's a bit unreal, but those things do happen. And somebody says the Marks and Spencer's Christmas food guide is available in Braille. I did not know that. So there you go.
They did. Yeah, I saw that at the Sight for Sound when I went to visit the Sight Village.
And anyone
Um,
who's looking at chat, Fanula's just putting some links in for the Braillists Foundation as well, so people can check those out. Okay. Adriana, anything else that you would add to people in terms of tips, or what if someone wants to get started with Braille or wants to maybe relearn Braille? Any of your top tips?
I think it helps if they're motivated or if they're looking for ways to get motivated, like if they know why they're doing it,
Yeah.
or if they find the ways to find some uses of it. I think that helps because many people are resistant to it or fear to learn it or hear all kinds of negative stories about Braille from other people. So I think it kind of helps to find the right people and the right sources to do it with. So yeah.
I think that's a really good point, actually, about the motivation and what drives you to do something. I remember talking to somebody before who had lost Braille later, or rather who had lost her sight later in life and was not sure if she wanted to learn Braille, but in conversation we identified that she really missed cooking and missed looking at her cookbooks, and that drove her
Yeah.
to learn Braille.
and
So
and also, if I may say, Stuart, Braille is something you can do. When someone's talking to you and they're reading out a menu, that's you just listening. But when you're reading something, you're doing that for yourself. That's an
yeah,
independence thing. And I really found that when I was learning Braille. Actually, this is giving me more independence, not so I'm not actually depending on other people to tell me things. I'm actually doing this myself. And I think that was a real motivator as well. I wanted to do things myself rather than depend on other people reading things out.
yeah, absolutely. And definitely when it comes to Braille music, that's another really good point. So sometimes people say if you don't have Braille music, you're just copying somebody else's sound. Braille music, you can really make it your own. I know we've a couple of hands up. Fanula, I don't know if you wanted to see if anyone wants to, there's probably a few people who want to make some comments.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Kimmy on. I don't know what order people came in because they all just seem to appear at once. So sorry if anyone has been waiting. Kimmy, you should be able to unmute yourself there.
Hello, Kimmy. I think you might get a little button to unmute to request to unmute, and you just have to tap the button.
Yeah, it should be there now, Kimmy.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Hi, Kimmy.
Hi. I learned Braille when I was about 5.5 when I came to New Zealand because I'm not from New Zealand originally. And not only did I have to learn English, I had to learn Braille as well. And that was really hard, I think. But I seem to have learned it quick because at the age of 6 or 7, I was really reading Braille quite well. And, I just, everything is Braille. I know we've got lives here that are in Braille, but we're trying to get the people that work for us, supposedly work for us, to know that Braille is not a need. I mean, it's not a want, it's a need. We need it because it's just something that we have to have. Now, one thing that we did that was quite funny was that we had a code. If the house mother or whatever, Braille was the word that meant, "Ooh, somebody's coming, be quiet." And or if you were, if we were working and somebody, visitors were arrived, they'd come and say Braille, Braille. So that means, anyone who was about to make expletives, would be quiet. So it was a good code word as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Kimmy. It's always good to hear these funny stories about Braille. So thanks a million for your contribution.
I've just brought Tina on there, Tina, if you'd like to unmute
Tina,
yourself.
you might need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, you're ready
And
to go. Oh, no,
I'd
you're
love
not.
to hear from you. I just see, I saw something there on chat. Somebody, Peter, was asking about learning Braille music and a shortage of teachers, and absolutely, Peter, there is. If you drop me an email, I might be able to give you some steer you in a couple of directions in that regard. Let's see, can we help you out? So maybe we'll come back to Tina.
Yeah, I'll bring Sandra on as well. Sandra, if you'd like to unmute yourself, and I think Tina might be
Hello,
unmuted now.
guys.
Okay,
Hi,
there.
Sandra. How are you?
Cool. I'm getting the hang of the stuff on the iPhone anyway.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, don't get me started on the tiny Braille displays on the iPhone. A couple of comments. I'm a Braille music teacher, FYI.
Ah, there you go.
The Menvi list, MENVI, is a sort of music educators, the visually impaired. That's what it stands for. It's a subscription list in America, but there's people on it around the world, and there's Braille music teachers on there, Braille music transcribers, and all sorts of things. So if people want to play on there, I found that with reading books on standalone sort of Braille note-taking / devices, that I found SD cards a bit too fiddly for myself, but I found that loading things on a flash drive works just as well. So whether you want to do it in BRF or a Word file, and it'll just come up in Braille on your unit. And then you don't necessarily have to have whatever it is transcribed. If you have a Word file or even a PDF that you convert to Word or RTF, then you can just fill your boots, basically.
Very good. Thanks for that, Sandra.
Tina, I think is.
Hello, yeah, sorry,
Hi,
it's
Tina.
Hi, Tina.
My husband had to help me sort it out.
No problem.
Firstly, I'd like to say I'm using my Braille Note Touch Plus to connect to you today, and also I feel so sorry for the lady in Arizona who's no means of getting any Braille. You know, I mean, if I could do something, I would, but unfortunately, I don't know how to go about it. And I'd like to recommend the Co-op shop called the Co-op. They do Braille, have Braille on some of their products, not just medication, but some of their other products as well, which I think is excellent. And it would be good if more supermarkets would take up that idea.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Tina. And yeah, I agree. And it's really nice sometimes to find food products. There's a wine.
And also, sorry, just quickly, I'd like to say I purchased a Braille teaching cube from the RNIB a few years back. And got a couple actually, but one I gave to a neighbour of mine. And this year I was extremely surprised because she took the idea up and she actually gave me a Christmas card in grade 2 Braille. I was very taken back because she actually managed to get the translation from grade 1 to grade 2 so that she could do this card for me.
Wow.
It's great. It's great when someone goes to that trouble for you. Yeah, it means a huge amount. Thanks, Tina, for your comments. And
there's one more quick, really quick,
because there's lots of people with hands up.
It is. When I was at school, we used to write things in Braille at the bottom of the piece of paper and give it to people like a little message, just for a bit of a laugh. And we used to write it the correct way up on the bottom of the page, and we gave it to our one of our other friends at school, and they used to have it the other way up and read it. We used to try and read Braille backwards. It's quite funny because I had to try and work out what it said without having to turn it around the other way.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Tina. Thanks for that. Great to hear all the Braille experiences that people are sharing this morning.
And we've Betsy now. Betsy.
Thank you.
Hi, Betsy. How are you?
Hi, Betsy.
Good, and you?
Very well.
Yes, in the US, back in the 60s, we were forced to learn the slate. We were not allowed to have the Braille writer till 3rd grade, and I used the slate all the way through college. And sometimes I still use it. The other thing, for the note takers, you do not have to have BRF files. For most of them, you can use text, DOCX, DOCs on them. So you don't have to have BRF or BRL files. The funny parts, or a funny story for you guys, is when we were punished at our blind school and we were supposed to write a Braille sentence 100 times or whatever, we would stick through 2 or 3 pages in and do our slate and stylus, which you can do with those.
Yeah.
So and as far as reading, I prefer hard copy Braille. I use a note taker the most, but I still get Braille books. There's, to me, nothing different than having that hard copy book in my hand and being able to read 2 lines at once. So I still prefer hard copy if I have a choice. So those are my comments.
Yeah, I kind of fully agree with your last one, Betsy. And I think this multi-line Braille that we're seeing, you know, is going to be very interesting the next few years. But I think, yes, if I need to read something really quickly, I still prefer it on paper.
And as far as music Braille, I learned music Braille in high school, and I actually taught a music savant Braille, and he is now at our National Library, the Braille section in Washington, D.C., and he is now there because I taught him Braille music. He can hear a piece and know what the notes are, so he's the one going through, listening to recordings and making sure they're correct in Braille music. So that's really neat for me.
Okay. Thanks for that, Betsy, and thanks for coming along and for your contributions today.
Do you want to keep going, Stuart?
Yeah, let's see, and we'll go back to Bernie and Adriana before we finish.
We've got Robert there if you want to unmute yourself.
Robert.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Robert Carter from the U.S. and in Texas. And Stuart, I so much appreciate you doing this presentation. I was here last year when you did it, and of course it's 4 a.m. here in Texas.
Yeah,
very early, but what a great way to start World Braille Day with this presentation. I've been a Braille user since first grade. I went to public school here in the U.S. and was fortunate to have a teacher who spent an hour a day teaching me things like Braille and touch typing and so forth. And I just really feel so much passion for Braille. I use it every day. I'm retired now after 33 years of working as a university psychologist. And I don't honestly know how I would have made it through my career without Braille, because I used it in countless ways in my job and even today. I was just thinking, I've been up since about 3 a.m. to attend this seminar, and I've already used the Braille on my microwave. I've already taken a look at some emails in Braille, and I've already taken a brief glance at the New York Times on one of my Braille displays. So I mean, I can't even begin to say how excited I am about Braille and how much I want to promote the use of it worldwide. And we have to really work hard to make sure that it stays prominent and gets the place that it deserves back in our schools. Kids, in my opinion, need to be learning Braille, and we need to really make that happen. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Robert, thank you, and thank you sincerely for getting up so early to come to an event. I know there's a couple of other people from the States here as well, I think, and some have contributed already. So thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
That's dedication.
So, yeah, serious dedication.
I just brought Lenita on there. Lenita, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Hi, Lenita.
Hi, am I unmute?
You are. We can hear you.
Yeah, I just want to say I learned Braille at 4 years old in South Africa, and we learned, well, English Braille and Afrikaans Braille with different codes. So by the time I was 7 or 8, I was able to read both English and Afrikaans Braille. And over 2 careers, second one, which I'm still engaged in, I have used Braille all the time throughout university, and obviously before the days of Braille note takers. And I also still prefer hard copy to a Braille display, but I use both, and I just think that Braille is the best thing. And I think that my all-time hero must be Louis Braille.
Indeed. I think everyone is going to be raising a glass of something to Louis Braille today. Thank you, Lenita, for coming along and for your comments.
And Peter, I think you're unmuted, Peter.
Hello there. Hello all. It's a wonderful day, and happy Louis World Braille Day and happy Braille Day. Oh, it's a wonderful system. You know, I lost my sight at 16 years old, and even before I lost my sight, I couldn't read or write print. I was exceptionally illiterate. At 15, I couldn't even write my own name, and I was more or less a fully sighted child. But the day I learnt Braille and the day it clicked, oh my goodness, oh, the wonders of the world! I have now access to my fingertips. I haven't stopped reading since, and that's been 10 years.
And at 16, Peter, was that I mean, it must have been a steep enough learning curve when you were, trying to do other things. You were probably coming up to your final year of school at the time.
Well, I mean, I shan't get into it too much, but honestly, I couldn't read or write beforehand, so I just more or less forgot everything I ever learned about written print and just stuck to Braille. And so in one ear and out the other with print, and Braille stuck forever.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that with us, Peter, and thanks for coming along today.
My pleasure.
Brilliant.
And Jane, you're up now if you'd like to unmute yourself. And then I'm going to bring Lisa on as well, Lisa, just so you're kind of queued up for after Jane.
Yeah. So Jane, I think you just need to press the unmute button if you can. And otherwise,
hello.
Yep.
Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Jane? Yeah.
My experience of Braille, I was taught by Nigel Berry in the 80s, who produced Fingerprint, and some of the things that he used to teach me really stuck in my head. I couldn't be without Braille now. I produce it, I read it, I love writing it. Braille is just so important to me. I'd love to see more supermarkets have Braille on the outside packaging, because that would make life so much easier. And if you get really hot fingers, this is a really good tip. We used to have this box on the table and it said, feel free. You lifted up the lid and there was talcum powder in the box, and the talcum powder released some of the stickiness of your fingers and enabled you to read the Braille that was under your fingers. And it's a really good, if you get really hot fingers like I do, bit of talcum powder on the fingers, it really does work. But my journey for Braille didn't start till I was 18, so I could see and I was reading print, but I now find I can't read print, so Braille is just a wonderful invention, and I couldn't be without it today.
Thanks, Jane. What a great tip. Get a box of talcum powder.
And
we'll
Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can. Are you sure?
You're a little bit low, but we can.
Are there any issues with access? Can you hear me now?
I think there's a lot of background noise where you are, Lisa.
Okay, well, I'll try to find it work. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Try again.
Can you hear me?
Not very well, Lisa.
I think there's a radio on or something where you are as well.
No, there's no radio. I'm in the office, so maybe.
Yeah, the audio is very poor, Lisa, unfortunately.
Okay. All right, no worries.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And our last raised hand for the moment is Carol. If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Hi, Carol. I think you just need to unmute yourself.
Hold the raise hand button R.
Hi,
I'm
Carol.
muted now, yeah.
You are, yeah. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Stuart, and thank you very much for organising this and really interesting seminar or webinar. So I learned Braille. I went to school in St. Mary's School for the Blind, and I learned Braille with a really teacher whom I'm remembering today, and my friends would have as well, and Mrs. Bean, an elderly lady who lived in St. Mary's and taught us Braille. And I took Braille, I suppose, for granted in many ways. Just it was always there. It's my preferred option for reading and writing because it just feels so natural, given that I learned it as a child. And I also agree that we do need to keep it up there and keep it, because there's so much voice synthesized equipment now because of JAWS. It's easy kind of for something like Braille to move into the background. But I did take it for granted, and then I had an injury to my right index finger a few years ago, and I just realized, how much I had taken Braille for granted. And I have learned now to read Braille with my middle finger, you know, with the next finger. Took a little bit while, but I can read it okay. I've much more trouble writing Braille now and touch typing, and I realize that that's actually where I have more difficulty, that you can actually learn to read with your other fingers, but probably less sensitivity the further fingers you go down. But writing Braille is much more of a challenge for me. And so, yeah, I'm going to be thinking of remembering Louis Braille today. We got Braille books from the Royal Institute for the Blind when we were in school. We got library books from England, and there's a lot of library books now from the library in NCBI do great work there, I think, to keep Braille going as much as well. And yeah, when we were going out to secondary school years ago, they actually were they trained some men in a prison here in Ireland to produce Braille books for our academic books. And so it's a different way. They actually had a Braille unit in Arbor Hill Prison in Dublin, where men were taught how to produce Braille books for us for going to school. So that was very interesting as well. And we actually went in to visit them as well. So yeah, it brings back lots of memories, Braille, and I really, really appreciate it. And I hope it'll be very much out there, and you know, more and more going. It is in lifts, some things like that, but yeah, to see it out and around more in everyday situations would be great. So thanks for the webinar today.
Yeah, thanks, Mill Carol, and great to hear you again. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear all the people's stories about Braille and how people have come to Braille, and it's a nice day, I think, to reflect on Braille. Now, I'm conscious of the time, and we were going to try and keep this to an hour if we can. I'm very conscious that people have gotten up really early to join this session as well. Fionnuala, I don't know if we want to, is there a couple of hands left?
There's just one.
Okay.
Yeah, Terry Ann.
Oh yeah, we have to bring Terry's another from the US. So we appreciate our friends from the US who've gotten up so early to join our session. And then I think we'll just go back to our panel for some final closing comments about Braille. Hi,
Yes,
Terry.
good morning from here. It's very early here too. But anyway, it occurs to me that I started learning Braille in 1957 as a 3.5-year-old child. And it occurs to me that I, since then, have been through, I guess, 3 iterations of Braille. We had the Braille code that we had back then. Then in 1965, I remember they changed the Braille code here in the US. And now again, in 2016, officially here in the US, we now have the third iteration of Braille. And yes, while a lot of things stayed the same in all 3 of those types of Braille, there were things that changed along the way as well. And so now we're to the UEB Braille, which a lot of people are using worldwide. And it's a wonderful thing that it's you know, the unified English Braille. It's I'm glad we are to this point with our Braille, and how the technology has allowed us to make it more accessible in so many different versions of math and science and literary Braille and music and all kinds of ways that maybe we didn't have. Louis Braille would be very proud of us, I think.
I think so, Terry, and it's true. The code keeps evolving, I suppose, as does print, and I think it's great to see that happening. So yeah, thanks for those comments, and thanks so much for coming along today as well. So we're nearly at the end of our session. I just wanted to go back to Adriana and Bernie, who have very kindly comprised our panel today. And I suppose my final question or final point, maybe for some brief comment from each of you, was just around World Braille Day and what World Braille Day means to you as you reflect today, and probably a lot of things that have been said already. Bernie, maybe do you want to start us off on what does
Yep.
today mean to you?
Well, I think it's about celebrating Braille. And I'm so glad there's a day that does that, because it you know, for so many people talking, you know, it's changed people's lives so much and has made lives better for so many people. And I think it also gives the opportunity for us to share with others that don't know anything about Braille what Braille is and how we use it, and how it's, how, as Terry Ann says, it's changed. And I think it gets the message out there. I hope it does. And also thinking about Louis Braille himself, what I really like about his life story is that, you know, he had an accident when he was 3, and you know, and he and some good came out of that. You know, Braille came about because of Louis Braille, and I think sometimes, you know, to it's a real positive story, I think, you know, about him. I think that's that really uplifts me when, you know, when things aren't going so well. I think actually good can come out of difficult situations. So yeah, that's what, you know, World Braille Day, you know, really means for me.
Thanks, Bernie. And yeah, absolutely. Adriana, any sort of final thoughts on what World Braille Day means to you and what today is about for you?
I guess it's a day of literacy. I really hope that we'll learn Braille as much as, you know, we could. And for some of it, it was hard and it was impossible to always get what you needed to get. But now we have to remember that we're teaching younger people, and nowadays in the world of technology, it's a bit tough to persuade them to learn Braille and why they need to learn it and all that. But we have to make them become literate. And also, I think, you know, there are all kinds of people who can help out with Braille, but the work falls on most of us who have no sight and who use Braille all the time. And I think we should do the most of work because we are kind of like experts in it, and it kind of it reaches us some things we need to make them go through in order to accomplish some things. And in the end, we don't really get much recognized from other people, but in my experience, that's what it was like from the beginning. So.
Brilliant, Adriana. Thank you very much. And I will just make a comment that Marcia, who unfortunately wasn't able to stay till the end, but Marcia had mentioned to me the other day when we were chatting about World Braille Day, and she said the first time she heard about World Braille Day was when she was asked to participate in this session. So maybe that says something about just World Braille Day and promotion, and maybe it's just something for us all to keep in mind. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining our very special Braille and Breakfast event today to kick off World Braille Day. As I said earlier, there's loads of great Braille stuff happening today from our friends at the Brailleist Foundation and UCAF, so do please support those as well if you can. Thank you sincerely to our panelists, Adriana and Bernie, and of course, Marcia, who had to leave us earlier on. Thank you to my colleagues Fanula and Shauna for helping, and happy World Braille Day, everybody. Go celebrate and raise a glass to Louis Braille wherever you may be today, and enjoy the celebrations as we all take time to reflect on the Braille code. So from Stuart Lawler and everybody at Sight and Sound Technology, take care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you all soon.